All right, boys and girls, welcome back to our weaving project. We're going to continue weaving our little pouch. So for the past few weeks, we have made our loom out of cardboard. Then we cut little snips in one end, and then we put the warp strings on our loom. Notice the top of our project, we have these little loops on every other prong. That is exactly what you need. It won't turn out right if you don't have those loops on every other prong. And the bottom doesn't have any loops. It just goes straight front to back, front to back. So loops on the top, no loops on the bottom. All right, we are going to start our, we did our warp, we're gonna start our weft. The weft is the strings that go back and forth. So to start that, we have to figure out, well, what are we gonna use? I'm gonna use this nice bright color. It needs to be a solid yarn, not one that's really feathery or too lightweight. We want kind of a thicker, regular, this is called a worsted weight. We want a worsted weight yarn. So I chose this one, and I'm going to cut a length of it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold one end in one hand, hold the ball in the other hand, stretch it out so that I have an arm's length, a whole from one hand to the other hand all the way stretched out. That's gonna be like close to 3 feet. And you kind of want 2 of those arm's lengths. You don't want more, or you will be very frustrated. You can do 1 arm's length or 2 arm's lengths, whatever you feel more comfortable with. You'll see what it feels like when you're pulling the yarn through your piece, and you'll see what you prefer as you continue your piece. So I cut about 2 arm's length. It's about 6 feet long maybe, of this beautiful color yarn. So we're gonna start. The first thing we have to do is tie a knot on our loom. Since I am right-handed, I'm going to tie my yarn onto the bottom right side. This is going to make it much easier for me to do my weaving. So I take that bottom string and I'm just going to put the yarn underneath it, and then just like I'm tying my shoe, I'm going to cross and then put the end through that hole, pull tight, and then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to cross, put the end through the hole, pull tight. And it's okay if I have that little string left over, that's fine, don't cut it off. All right, then I'm gonna take the other side of my yarn and I'm going to thread my needle. I have this nice brightly colored needle. I'm gonna just stick it through the end. And if you'd like, you can tie just one little knot here to keep it from pulling out of the hole in the needle. All right, now we're gonna start weaving. When we weave, we want to create an every other pattern, a one-to-one pattern. So you're going to take your weaving, hold it in front of you, and you're going to treat the first one like it is an over, and then you're going to go under, over, under, over, under, over for every string from then on. So if this is over, I'm going to go under, then over my next one, under my next one, over, under, over, under. You can see I created this every other pattern here, and after I've gone about a third or halfway through, I'm just going to pull my string through a little bit. Then I'm going to continue. I went under this string, so the next one has to be over. So then I'm going to go under, over, under, over, under. I'm going to pull through a couple of those. Make sure I don't tangle anything. See how it's this nice, neat pattern here? And I'm going to continue. So this one was under, this one will be over. We've got under, over, under, over, over, over. Okay, so you can see I did every other. Now I'm going to pull my whole string through. This is why you don't want a piece that's too long, or you are going to be so frustrated pulling that through. And then I'm going to use my fingernails and push it down as low as it can go. Pull it a little bit tight, and you're not pulling it so tight that you bend your cardboard, but you pull it just a little bit tight. Okay, now you now have the front, the first layer on the front done. You now have to flip it around and do the first layer on the back. So let's look. My last string was, I had an under and then over. If your last string was an over, your first string on the next one has to be the opposite. So I went over, that means I'm turning it. I have to go under my first string. If your last string was under, depends how many strings you have on your warp, then if your last one was under, you have to go over. I hope that makes sense. Just keep up your pattern. So I went under, over. That means I'm going under on the opposite side. So I turn my piece around, and I'm going to continue that pattern. Under, over, under, over, under, over, under. Pull it through a little bit, and then keep going with your pattern. Pull through a little bit. You can go about halfway, probably, maybe a third before pulling the needle through a little bit. And remember, you keep checking. Where are you? Well, under, over, under, over, under, over. Check yourself every little step. Make sure you went under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. And at no point should you have an over, over or an under, under. That means you wove incorrectly, and you're going to need to pull out your string a little bit and start back. So I'm pulling my whole length through, and I have my whole first row done. I can then use my nails, scooch it down. Scooch, scooch, scooch. You want it to be tight at the bottom. That's the bottom of your bag. You want it to be nice and tight. So if you see, I have my front side where I tied it on. I did my under over pattern. I flipped and continued onto the back side, still at the bottom, went around. That is the first row. The next video is going to show you how to do every row after that. So make sure you get your first row and then watch the next video.